Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now we're taking a look at Sandbox, which is a big recommendation from my community and my patrons to ask that I go ahead and cover this. So that is the main reason I'm reaching out to go ahead and review this here, because there's been a significant increase. Like in the last week and a half, I think it's increased somewhere in the range of like 225%. I took a quick glance at it, and it'd be interesting to dive in here. Now this is just a fundamental correction. This is just a technical analysis. There's no fundamentals here, but I do recommend when we see this kind of price action, contrary to Bitcoin doing a whole lot of nothing, the same old stuff from between 32,000 and 35,000, we want to make sure you do your own research, right? So take a look at the fundamentals, see what's going on. There's a likelihood of that being the catalyst here. Okay, but I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. Again, you should always do your own research. And moving forward, I do recommend you check out my Patreon account. If you'd like signals, I do send 3 to 5 signals per week, and we've had a pretty good success rate so far, upwards about 92%. So it's been going very well. Thanks again to my patrons and your belief in me. Really appreciate that. Moving forward, also, I have a Telegram community. Be sure to reference that. There's a good group of folks there. You can learn a lot. So check that out when you get a chance. But without further ado, enough talking for me. Let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at Sandbox. And before we do, we always look at Bitcoin, Ethereum first to get a baseline of the market so we know what's going on so you can make an informed decision, right? That's the whole point of being a trader, is to understand all the angles so you work with the best, most relevant information. That's the whole point of these videos, to ensure you can learn a little something along the way. So let's take a look at Bitcoin first. Okay, now just to clarify, this is TradingView.com desktop application, one of the best options available out there, so recommend you utilize it. And of course, we're going to utilize also the simple moving averages. This is the 200, the purple, and the orange is the 50. And these are kind of the industry leaders, industry standards are all utilizing this, so we have to do the same thing as well. That way we're not shooting, blanks, so to speak. We're shooting fish in the barrel. I don't know if that works, but that's the concept, right? You got to increase your odds and improve your chances, and that's what this is going to do for us. Okay, so looking at the moving averages, first of all, to clarify, the 50 works as a major resistance and or support level. Same with the 200 in most cases, but lately the 50 has been doing a lot more action because the price cannot seem to break this 32 to 36,000 channel. But that's okay. That's kind of where we're at for now. Not the end of the world, but as you can see, major resistance here, worked as a resistance, got broken after about 5 or 6 attempts, shot through, came up, bounced off the 200 and the resistance level, came down, became a support and resistance. You kind of catch the drift here, but the bottom line is that when it breaks, it'll test 3 or 4 or 5 times, and it'll break very hard and very fast. So right now we've got 2 attempts on the 50, so we're hoping for another, maybe I would say 8 more hours until we see a breakthrough. Just based on its history, based on its trend, it has a tendency of doing that. Major support at 30,000, major resistance at 42,000, and not much else to note except the fact that the 200 is a current resistance level that was tested 5 times and rejected 5 times. That's kind of where we're at. So that is the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum now. Now Ethereum's kind of been bouncing around a little bit more than Bitcoin, so to speak. It's kind of exaggerated, if you will. But the cool thing here is that we've got both the 50 and the 200-day moving average kind of coming together. So that creates a stronger resistance, but also a stronger support once it does break through. I foresee the price exceeding 2,200 here soon, and I think we're looking to be in pretty good shape for Ethereum. However, for right now, it's kind of trying to figure things out with Bitcoin kind of getting a slight rejection. Okay, it's getting rejected off the 50, and in turn, the Ethereum is essentially performing similarly, just a little lower on the totem pole, right? So it's just interesting how Ethereum works lately. It usually is a go-to coin for folks that, when Bitcoin does poorly, you go to Ethereum. Lately, Ethereum's been kind of just like, I wouldn't say dead, but it hasn't been responding as well as it should. We had a pretty decent ramp up back here, but that's because the RSI was so freaking low for too long that we saw that. Either way, all speculation aside here, Ethereum is in pretty good shape, all things considered. I expect the price to come back up, surpass 2,200, and test the 50 and the 200-day moving average. Those should likely sync up by the time it hits that. Okay, so that is Ethereum. Let's go ahead and take a look at Sand now. Sandbox. We look at the 1-hour chart, correction, the 1-day chart first, work our way down. We'll look at the 1 day so we can identify the average true range, but also just generally understand its history and how it's responded to Bitcoin sell-offs. That to me is probably the most important, because if we can see that it's responding to every single movement by Bitcoin, then we understand how it reacts and responds. Obviously, this is contradictory to that the last 4 days, but I feel like Sandbox has a lot of good fundamentals. You probably need to look into that yourself. But also, the average true range was somewhere in the range of 55 to 70 cents before all this craziness happened. Okay, so if we just quickly identify here, take a look. This is probably April 17th. Yep, right there. First major sell-off from Bitcoin. Second major sell-off from Bitcoin the 22nd. Big ramp up on the 25th. No surprise. Everything else came back up like that. And then it came back down. Looking at May 12th, that's the first Elon candle. And we got the China candle here and some other BS along the way. So simply put, Sand is performing exactly the way we expected it to prior to this most recent increase. So that tells me there's some really strong fundamentals that took into place here. A lot of times when coins are introduced to new exchanges, you'll see this happen. But I would just recommend doing your own research and finding that out. I didn't get a chance to do that myself here today, just because my patrons asked me to go ahead and cover this. So looking at it here, you can kind of just see one thing to note. There was a death cross previously, which to me, again, matters very little. And that was supposed to have pushed the price down. Really didn't matter, because the price was already so low that couldn't go any further. And of course, it's just ramped up ever since then. So it broke right through both major supports or correction resistances that are now supports. So all in all, Sandbox is in the clear. Just keep in mind, there's a chance of either a retracement or at least some sideways action moving forward here, because RSI is extremely overbought at 78, almost 80. And the MACD, even though we had a nice convergence right here on the 28th, it is essentially progressing upwards still. Okay, so again, pay attention to this. If you're a swing trader, which a lot of you are, pay attention to the MACD and how it performs. In other words, the MACD is great for the 4-hour chart and the 1-day chart. And looking at here, if you can see, this is a convergence when the 12 intersects with the 26. These are both exponential moving averages. And when the 12 intersects with the 26 in an upward fashion here, if you mark that on your calendar, you can kind of take a look here. That was what, the 28th? So on the 28th, we had a strong convergence on the MACD. Now, coincidentally, the price has continued to progress upward since then. So had you got in at 20 cents, you would have 2.5 times your value right now, upwards of 50 right now. Okay, so again, you want to pay attention to those type of indications. The MACD is really good on larger time frames to help us identify entry points as a swing trader. Moving on to the 4-hour, we kind of take the same approach here. The only difference is things are a little bit smaller. So in other words, we look back here, that's what I marked for the MACD. Obviously, it doesn't coincide with the MACD on the 4-hour chart. They don't work and speak the same language, but the bottom line is that the 4-hour chart also gives us really good buy signals and sell signals, but more importantly, the moving averages are probably the most accurate. In other words, the 1-day chart is one thing, right? Big picture kind of gives us an idea of what's going on, but the 4-hour chart really tells us what's going on here. So if we have the 50 swing in upward fashion here, that's considered a golden cross. Big coincidence that the price action shot straight up right here. Okay, so that's no surprise. That does happen often. Again, I don't put a lot of weight into it, but if I was a gambling man, I would have gambled that the price would have gone up at this point, just because that's kind of the natural law of things in trading. So that could have factored in. Furthermore, we got the RSI jumping up over 70, came back down, calmed down, and we're still under 70 presently. So all in all, still has plenty of room for growth. And we also have a convergence here as well. So that's another indication of a buy signal. Big surprise. Price action jumped up a good 18%, almost 19% based on that one signal alone. Okay, so start paying attention to the MACD. When you have a convergence, essentially that's when or in this case, the blue swings upwards to the orange. It'll be different colors for you probably, but it's the one that moves faster is the 12. That one is considered the convergence when it swings in upward fashion. And this is a divergence right here as well. So if you can see, the price is coming back down, the price is diverging. Okay, so that's kind of what you're looking at for the 4-hour chart. Next up is the 1 hour, and we go ahead and disable the moving averages because they're no longer necessary. In my personal opinion, I don't like them on the 1 hour chart or lower. 4 hour, 1 day, that's all good. Again, those are simple moving averages. Exponential moving averages are okay on the 15 or less. We'll identify that here next, but the first thing we want to look at is the Ishimoku cloud. Now this kind of tells us buy signals and sell signals, right? So had you invested right back here, as soon as it broke above the cloud, you'd be doing pretty well right now, right? 28 cents, upwards of 51. That's a good investment, okay? Now again, easier said than done, of course, because it doesn't always work out that way, especially when the price action is going sideways. But when you can identify the fact that the price has been so low for so long on the 1-day chart, for example, right there, that's a case in point where you'd want to take entry. So use the MACD in that case, but furthermore, give your extra confirmation by looking at the 1 hour chart with the Ichimoku cloud. Okay, so again, price above cloud, etc., good to go. Same thing here as well. So it's considered a buy signal right now based on what we see so far, right? Furthermore, we also want to look at TD sequential, which is time to mark sequential, and this is a good one just to quickly identify exhaustion, because what you're looking for are nines, and I've probably identified this a few times. There's a lot that goes on with TD sequential. Okay, it's not just you find a 9 and it's successful, right? There's a lot of other things you may want to eventually learn. Take a look at some other videos for that, but I can tell you that I typically, when you see a 9, it tells you there's sign of exhaustion, and that basically just means that in this 9-hour time frame, the bears have been in complete control, and it's time for the bulls to start taking over. Now, it can oftentimes reset and just kind of start recounting, but when you see an 8 or a 9, pay attention to see what happens, because it'll likely reverse and switch directions. Yeah, that's a very common thing. So had you just say take an entry here back at the 9, you would have still been in the green had you held on for 24 hours. Okay, but right now it shows we're at a 7 that could possibly reset based on its price action there, because it takes the 4 bars behind, and as long as it's higher or lower than the fourth bar behind it, it'll continue counting. So that could continue to 7, 8, 9. That being said, just bear in mind we could see retracement in the next couple of hours, right? Again, none of this is set in stone, because you need to make sure to utilize this in conjunction with other things. That's why we look at the 1-day chart and work our way down. Don't just jump in, look at the 15-minute chart, oh, RSI and MACD are looking good, and get in. You want to look at everything, okay? Specific time frames have their specific benefits. To me, the 1-hour chart, TD sequential, and Ichimoku cloud, that's all I use it for. Moving on to the 15. Looking at this here, so the 15-minute chart is another one of my favorites, right? The 4-hour and the 15. You probably heard that by now a few times, but generally speaking, what I'm getting at is that we're always going to use the EMA and VWAP lines on the 15-minute chart. Those are my 2 indicators I utilize in conjunction with the RSI. So why don't we just go ahead and enable that? First of all, I have a notification, indication, whatever oscillator, whatever term you want to use to describe it. I have this created, of course, and it basically just tells you buy signals and or potential sell signals. In other words, when the price is too high and it's over RSI, these little purple lines just kind of start showing up. And if you got good confirmation above VWAP and EMA, you got this purple or this yellow line, I guess yellow arrow, so to speak. So to summarize, the VWAP is the volume weighted average price. That's this blue line. It takes the 24-hour volume, expresses it as a price, right? And every 24 hours it resets. So you see it reset here, 5 p.m. Pacific. Reset here, 5 p.m. Pacific. So it's good that it resets, because it resets that standard deviation, because otherwise it'd continue out of control. But the bottom line is that when it's working as a support level, the price is above. When it's working as a resistance, price is below. So generally speaking, you don't want to take entry underneath the VWAP. You want to take entry above the VWAP. Okay. Now, right now, it's kind of a little funny because the price just reset 2 hours ago. So the price is going to be below, but also we have this retracement occurring based on the fact that there was an overextension between the VWAP and the current price action. So if we look at this, where the VWAP was, you're looking at 21, upwards of almost 30% difference from the VWAP line to the price action. That's too much. Anything over 10% has a commonality of wanting to retrace in the near future. So there's a strong chance that this could continue to come down, or at least go sideways. We want it to go sideways for some time, because otherwise this run will be for nothing. Because you see how this ramped up so fast and so quick, it had to come back down. You see that split the difference almost 50%. So if you take that 91% there, that increase, which is quite a lot in the last 24, 48 hours, you see it came back down almost halfway. It's really extremely common to see retracements occur that are 50 to 60% of the distance, from where it came. In other words, what goes up must come down by 50%, I guess, if that makes sense. So if we see this price ramp back up again, hypothetically, it'll come back down to about 46 cents if it doesn't go sideways for much longer, right? So again, we want to see a good bull run is a bull run that increases, goes sideways, increase, sideways. We have to see some type of retracement. We don't want to see this type of retracement, because that's too much, unless you plan to just go long and then short every time it happens. It's hard to gamble, or pretty much gambling at that point, depending on what you're looking at. So just be careful, be cautious. But what I'm trying to get at here, sorry, I do tend to ramble, is the fact that the MACD, I meant to say the EMA. The EMA 15 is what I use. That's this red line. Okay, so these red lines here, let's go ahead and hold, first of all, clear that guy. So these red lines basically just tells us when the price is above, it's a bullish trend. When the price is below, it's a bearish trend. Okay. So what's cool about it is when you see the price come up, like right here, for example, say you take an entry there, you see the price come up and then come back down and basically test the EMA line, but it's still held. And you know why? Because it bounced off the VWAP line. Okay. So you want to kind of pay attention to that when the price stays above VWAP and EMA and is progressing nicely like this, then that's a consideration to take entry or add to your position. Yeah. So again, just something I like to identify and point out for you because that helps you understand, best practice. So big picture, to kind of answer probably one of your main questions here is, what is the prediction for sand? Well, truth be told, the price action, again, before all this craziness happened, was somewhere between 53 and 75 cents. It's at 51 or 52 right now. Will it continue to increase? Yeah, probably. Will it do that right away? I don't believe so. At least, don't get me wrong, I really hope so. I would love to see it continue. But it's ramped up a lot. It's increased, what? That's almost... How much? What's that percent? There you go. Yeah, 230% from in just over, I would say, a week and a half. We've seen a 230% increase. And majority of that happened in the last 4 trading days. It's increased 75% in the last 4 trading days. So big increase, big numbers. It hasn't had a chance to recover, but keep in mind, it's history too. This is another thing that's interesting. Look at how it does this. Sharp ramp up, retraced by 50%. Sharp ramp up, retraced by 50%. Sharp ramp up, retraced by 40%. And then it started to normalize and came back down. So every single time it goes up, it comes down by 50 to 60%. Not saying it's going to happen here right now per se, but it's a likelihood and you want to prepare for it. Okay? So don't be surprised or alarmed when the price comes back down, especially if Bitcoin does another sell off like it did a couple of days ago where it drops 3,000 or 4,000 out of nowhere. We're going to see Sandbox tank. So if you have an open position, might recommend you take some type of profits before it turns around and reverses because it has a history of doing this. But my prediction is that it'll go sideways for a while and then fall, and or just stay sideways for some time and continue to consolidate. Would be nice. Again, that's where you want to do your own research and find out if there's any fundamentals that are causing this price action. Because if there's some big improvements, some big introductions to other exchanges, then it may continue to hold its value. All right. Just know, it was in the range of where it's at now, upwards of 70 cents as its average true range before all this happened. So it shouldn't exceed, I would say, 70 cents in the next couple of weeks. It'll likely stay below, but I fear that it might come back down again, depending on how Bitcoin works. So I hope you found that beneficial and I didn't generate more questions for you, but generally speaking, that's kind of how I'd approach this. So I personally wouldn't want to take entry because I feel like it's extremely overextended right now, maybe even considering a short position if we get those kind of signals. So the price continues to digress under the EMA line and stay below VWAP. You might want to consider a short and or just selling some of your position before it ramps, it ramps down again. So just be cautious, be aware that it does have a tendency of retracing pretty hard. So if you find benefit, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Feel free to join my Telegram community too. We got a really good group of folks over there. But more importantly, hope you be safe and be wise. Remain cautiously optimistic and ensure that you are safe and use everything we just learned here today every time you trade. Okay, don't just jump in. Do not use your emotions. I know it's easier said than done, but be logical and be smart about stuff. Okay, so have a good rest of your day. Well, thank you for your time. Really do appreciate you watching. Thanks again to my patrons as well for recommending I cover this. You all have a great rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.